Hello, and thank you for joining us. We have a lot to get to tonight, including the federal indictment against President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton. Prosecutors have charged Bolton, who also served as ambassador to the United Nations under President George W. Bush, with 18 criminal counts related to the transmission and retention of classified material. That indictment comes after the FBI searched Bolton's home and office in August. At the time, President Trump said he knew nothing about the search, but described Bolton as unpatriotic and a lowlife. The charges against Bolton follow the indictment of two other Trump rivals, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. News of this indictment came just as President Trump was taking questions from the Oval Office.
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy.
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person.
CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Sganga joins us now to talk about all this. Nicole, thanks for joining us here. Can you first walk us through the charges against John Bolton?
Yeah, absolutely, Nancy. 26 pages, 18 counts in total for transmission and retention of sensitive information. And each count corresponds to a specific document. If convicted on all of these counts, Bolton could face decades in prison. Each Espionage Act count carries a maximum penalty of 10 years. But before we get ahead of ourselves, the indictment alleges that Bolton, while serving in the White House from April 2018 to September 2019, abused his position by, quote, sharing more than 1,000 pages of information about his day-to-day activities as national security advisor with two unauthorized individuals. They're labeled Individual 1 and 2, family members. Prosecutors say Bolton created a diary-like record, daily notes and reflections, and according to the Justice Department, he routinely transcribed those handwritten notes from secure White House meetings into Word files, then emailed or messaged them to these two relatives. Now, neither relative had a security clearance or authorization to receive classified information, according to the court documents. One of those relatives also set up an encrypted group chat, which was then used to share information. And according to the indictment, many of the documents include details of foreign intelligence operations, U.S. covert actions, sensitive signals, even human intelligence sources, including a document in September 2018 that showed intelligence about a future attack an adversarial group in another country was planning, and one in January 2019 that showed plans for a foreign missile launch. This is top secret stuff, Nancy.
Well, given how far it goes back, how did the U.S. government even first discover that he was using a personal email, and how are prosecutors here trying to prove intent?
Yeah, it came to the government's attention after a 2021 cyber intrusion of Bolton's personal email, believed to be linked to Iran, according to the documents. A representative for Bolton reported to the FBI that someone in Iran had hacked his email, and shortly after, he got a sort of taunting message that this could be the biggest scandal since Hillary's emails were leaked. A representative of Bolton's forwarded the note to the FBI, but prosecutors didn't disclose that his account had any classified information in it. As for intent, prosecutors appear to be using quotes from Bolton over the years about what he has said about classified information to show that he understood the rules governing it, but disregarded them. And as for what's next, we expect he will appear in federal court in the coming weeks.
Well, stay tuned for that. Nicole Sganga, thank you very much. And CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi joins us now. Caroline, very good to see you. So this case deals with the handling of classified material. What would prosecutors need to prove to a jury to get a conviction here?
Yeah, just first off, Nancy, these are really serious charges, I would note. Although we're sort of thinking about him in terms of this bucket of these three foes of President Trump that have been indicted in really just 3 weeks. This could be a different case we're talking about here. The indictment is quite fulsome, and it lays out, as was noted by Bradley there, 18 violations of the Espionage Act for both retention and transmission of classified information. And basically, it tells the story of John Bolton since 2018, transmitting these daily diary entries and transcribing his written notes of classified information. and turning them over to what's being reported as his wife and daughter, in this group chat over AOL. And so what the government will need to prove in these types of cases is that these types of retention and transmission were knowing and willful. Remember, we've heard about unlawful retention of classified information from President Biden, from Vice President Trump, Trump obviously himself was indicted on just such charges. But the issue really is the intention. And what's going to be really hard here for John Bolton to argue is that he didn't know that using or handling this type of information in this manner was not legal. He has spent a lifetime in national security, and there's a whole section in the indictment about speaking publicly about how important it is to handle classified information in the proper way.
And Caroline, we just got a statement moments ago from John Bolton saying here, I look forward to the fight to defend my lawful conduct and to expose his abuse of power. The Department of Justice, though, has also charged President Trump's rivals, James Comey and Letitia James. Could Bolton's team here claim that perhaps there's a pattern and use that in their defense?
Definitely, it sounds like, according to that statement, it sounds like he will invoke some sort of selective and or vindictive prosecution defense. Those defenses, I would say, are much stronger in the Tish James and James Comey indictments. One, because they were the subject of that, what was supposed to be a personal DM to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying go after these people, but also that several career prosecutors resigned in that district, the Eastern District of Virginia, where those indictments came down, and Trump installed one of his personal attorneys previously that was working at the White House in that district to indict. Here, it's a little bit of a different story. We have a career prosecutor here bringing these charges, bringing this indictment. It's been a years-long investigation. It was going on in the Biden administration. And you have a really fulsome indictment laying out the specific documents and the charges. So I think there's more teeth here, but certainly he will make that argument that is selective and vindictive prosecution. Certainly he has been on Trump's hit list since he left that first stint in his first administration.
Caroline Polisi, thank you very much.
We begin with the indictment of the former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton by a Maryland grand jury for mishandling classified information. The 18-count, 26-page indictment alleges Bolton kept and shared secret information while writing his critical tell-all about his time in the Trump White House. CBS legal contributor Jessica Levinson is here to assess the charges. Jessica, how do you assess the charges? What do you make of them?
So we have a little bit more information here than we did, for instance, with respect to the indictments of Letitia James or James Comey, and there's obviously a lot of other differences as well. Essentially, what is being alleged here is that John Bolton kept and transmitted national defense information when he shouldn't have. We know from reporting and from the indictment that this largely focuses on the idea that he was keeping diaries and or transmitting information on an AOL account to people he's related to, which reporting indicates was his wife and his daughter. And so that's really the sum total of the allegations. His defense attorney already has said there's nothing illegal with keeping a diary. That's what he was doing. We've already resolved these issues. Obviously, we're just at the beginning of this case. We haven't even seen an arraignment. So in terms of assessing the strength of the allegations here, we have to wait to see until we get a little bit more evidence. But it really is all down to misusing classified information.
And Jessica, how much does intent matter? And can we put under the category of intent sort of should have known better?
Well, I think it's more than you should have known. When we look at the two statutes that John Bolton is indicted under, these are specific intent crimes. So it's not just, whoops, I wish that I had kept those folders in a better place, or maybe a reasonable person would have known not to keep this running diary in an AOL account. It really is about knowledge and intent.
And you mentioned quickly, 20 seconds, how it's different from, say, the James Comey indictment. How so?
Different crimes, no need to change the personnel in the U.S. Attorney's Office. When it came to the indictment, we understand that career prosecutors brought this to the grand jury, signed the indictment. Those things were not present when it comes to Letitia James or James Comey and those indictments.
So less of a political valence. Jessica Levinson, thank you as always.
I'm going to turn to the wall over here. We call this affectionately wall number one. Scott Fredericksen will join me now, former federal prosecutor. So where are we? There you are. You're on wall one now. Scott, again, I want to remind our audience, I'm going to keep saying this throughout the program. This has just happened. We are just going through the indictment. Taking that on board, what are your initial observations?
Well, the fact of the indictment is no surprise. We all knew this was coming. It all depends on the details and the facts. There are thousands of instances of classified documents that end up in former government officials' hands, if you will, or at their homes, and they're never charged. The difference is, what's the level of classification? If they are top secret, that's the highest level. That's very serious. What proof of intentionality is there that Mr. Bolton intentionally, knowingly mishandled this information? What we know leading up to the indictment is that the government seemed to be focusing on three buckets. One was stemming back to his original time during Mr. Trump's first term as president. Mr. Bolton wrote a book, and there was a large dispute with the Trump administration of whether he was using classified information. A criminal investigation was begun, but kind of petered out. There was a civil lawsuit, and that was resolved. The second bucket is documents that were seized at Mr. Bolton's Bethesda, Maryland home. That's why the indictment's in Maryland, and at his office in Washington, D.C. Were there top secret documents there that he had in his possession? We don't know if that's the subject of the indictment. And the third part is interesting. Apparently, Mr. Bolton was using an AOL email account and apparently or allegedly had information, classified information on that account that was hacked and intercepted by a foreign adversary. We don't know if that's part of the indictment yet.
You mentioned the key word, which I've heard communicated many times in this general sphere of prosecution: intentionality. What did you know, and what did you willfully defy in terms of your handling of classified information? Walk my audience through how important that is.
That's critical because the criminal statute requires intentionality. This is not a statute, a criminal statute that is used for indicting people who mistakenly hold on to documents when they had no intention of doing so. Or when they have them, they alert the government and say, hey, I've got this, I'm going to bring them back. This statute is not for those situations. It's when an individual knowingly, intentionally takes a document or retains a document knowing he has no business to them, or when the government alerts them and says, we want them back. And that was the case with former President Trump in his first term, allegedly, and he refused. So intentionality is required here, and prosecutors don't take cases unless, and they shouldn't, unless they can prove by circumstantial evidence or otherwise that this individual knew what they were doing and intentionally kept or retained highly classified documents.
And Scott, you mentioned that third bucket, an AOL email account. Historically, can you be prosecuted if someone hacks your account, or is it prosecutable just if you had something deemed classified, top secret or otherwise, in what the government regards as a less than secure email place?
I think the answer, Major, is that yes, you could be prosecuted. It just depends, again, on what proof there is of your knowledge that, say, you were using an unsecure website. So if you're the national security advisor, you bring home highly classified, top secret documents, or that you use them or refer to information in them on an unsecure website, you're subject to being indicted. But again, it all depends on the facts. But every government official is schooled on how this works. And when you're dealing with the highest classified documents, you have no business putting them on or putting information contained in them on an insecure website such as AOL.com.
Scott Fredericksen, thank you so very much. On the fly, giving us excellent context, legal analysis.